Recently, one of my friend's youngest daughters was rushed to the hospital with a diagnosis of meningitis. Now, thanks to the prayers and the good medical care, she recovered quickly and was well enough to be released from the hospital within a few days. During the drive home, the mother of the little girl cradled her in her arms, and the 3-year-old said to her mother, "Hold me, Mommy." She kept saying this even though her mother was holding her tight already. "Hold me, Mommy, hold me." Hearing this simple story, I realized that when we call out to God, to Mary, to the saints for that matter, our prayers are part supplication, "Comfort me, help me, Mary, be with me," and part proclamation, "You comfort me, you help me, you are with me." Aren't our cries to Mary also our profession of faith in her? Isn't that very fact that we call out to Mary an indication that we place our lives in her hands? I read an article about a man who was in his mid-40s. He had deep faith and devoted love for his wife and daughters. He died of leukemia, and he had kept a journal which consisted of pages chronicling his journey of faith, prayer, and surrender. One entry stated, "The simple childlike repetitions of the nature of Jesus and Mary can work real miracles for us." The simple childlike repetitions of simply the name of Jesus and Mary can work real miracles for us. Wow. That's a powerful statement. At the top of a page near the end of his journal, he wrote, October 1941, Chip's Novena Prayer to Mary, composed one sleepless night. Praise be Jesus and Mary ever Virgin. And his personal litany, which he composed that sleepless night, consisted of 75 3-word prayers written one underneath the other. Help me, Mary. Hold me, Mary. Protect me, Mary. Warm me, Mary. Cool me, Mary. Heal me, Mary. Use me, Mary. Cradle me, Mary. Take me, Mary. Hear me, Mary. Humble me, Mary. When Blessed John Paul II preached his first homily in St. Peter's Square in 1978, his first words to the world were, "Do not be afraid." Now, 20 years later, in 1993, almost since he became Pope, when he published his book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, he repeated these very words that he first spoke to the world. Do not be afraid. Now, this was 20 years later, and what had happened in that time? Well, he had survived an attempt on his life and serious illness. He had watched the downfall of communism and the escalating persecution of the church and other parts of the world. He had seen an increased threat to human life and dignity. And when he wrote this book 20 years later in the 1990s, he began it and he ended it like 2 bookmarks with reflections on the same words. Do not be afraid. These words, they're brilliant biblical counsel. They're wise advice. This is the message that the angel told Mary at the Annunciation. This is what the shepherds heard at the birth of Jesus. Do not be afraid. This is what Joseph was told in a dream. Do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife into your home. An angel told the women at the tomb after they had buried Jesus, do not be afraid. Jesus said to his disciples, do not fear, little flock. Do not let your hearts be troubled. At a critical time in his ministry, St. Paul received a vision from the Lord who said to him, do not be afraid. Go on speaking, and do not be silent, for I am with you. As St. John began his book of Revelation, he recounted how he saw Christ in glory who said, do not be afraid. I am the first and the last and the one who lives. One of the things that the Bible shows us so clearly is that the holy witnesses for God clung to God's promises and grew in faith. Their cries, their pleas were acts of faith. They were proclamations of God's loving kindness. And even as they spoke their cries, they already knew that they were safely in God's arms. The one upon whom they called was near, and there was no reason for them to be afraid. You know, in the course of our day, we have so many opportunities to call upon Mary in such simple ways, like the man who wrote that litany, One Sleepless Night. 3-word phrases, even calling her name. Guide me, Mary. Give me strength, Mary. I love you, Mary. Calling upon her, we proclaim our faith in her saving love. And the duties of the day, as hectic or lonely or challenging as they might be, are sometimes, if not always, transformed by the revelation of the presence of Jesus, which Mary brings to us because we ask. And gradually, we begin to realize that the very reason we were led to call out her name in the first place was that she was there all along. She was always there. We know that. And so, let me conclude simply by saying, pray always, and do not be afraid.